Winners and losers from around the National Hockey League presented by Discover. I'll start with a winner. I thought the commemorations were terrific in the recent memory. The Steven Stamkos returning to Tampa, Marc-Andre Fleury returning to Pittsburgh. A special shout out to the Penguins social media staff. I thought the letting him cut down the nets after the game while Crosby and Malkin and Letang are sitting there laughing at him because it took him so long. Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
I was at Stamkos night, as you know. I think our last episode was right before that, and it was such an emotional time. I mean, it was sort of beautiful. It was bittersweet, I guess would be the word I use, because it was bittersweet because obviously there was a lot of people that were very upset that Stamkos didn't end up potentially finishing his career with the Lightning. But the presentation was great. The video was great. The lap around the ice celebrating with the fans was great, and just provided a little bit of closure for everybody. Although, as Steven Stamkos told me after the game, maybe you never really turn the page when you've spent so much time in a market and when you feel still that lingering bitterness of a team not giving you the money you think you deserve and basically trading you in for a younger model in Jake Gensel, who, by the way, it should be said, has made that line with Kucherov and Braden Point better than it ever was with Stamkos, because they're a defensive juggernaut and an even better offensive team. So as sad as it was to see that divorce between Stamkos and the Lightning, it may have made them a better team, and we wait for Nashville to become a better team with Steven Stamkos in the roster.
Now, to be fair, Nashville has gotten a little better lately. They finally got some wins. I guess that's a positive. But also the thing is, they go down in most games by multiple goals. Yeah. Like, they just dig themselves into a hole. But they also have a unrealistic low shooting percentage. Like, that's going to correct itself at some point.
It should. It's cyclical. I think they're like fourth worst offense team with goals per game in the league. So that is not what an Andrew Brunette team is. And so you expect that to be cyclical and then the cycle back and everybody to fit in. But like when I was talking to the Predators after that Stamkos game, they all seemed to think that it was all coalescing. Things were moving forward. Everybody was feeling positive, and they've not really built on that momentum yet, which they need to, because the Central Division is very top-heavy right now.
It certainly is. Now, speaking of momentum and vibes in the locker room, why don't you give us a loser?
I'm going to say more like Bruins, Arda Öcal. The Boston Bruins, now, they have put together a couple wins recently, but the vibes are off. There's been so much attention being paid to the Jim Montgomery of it all. And here's where I'll defend Jim Montgomery, okay? He took grief for yelling at Brad Marchand on the bench. His captain had a turnover. Marchand, after the game, said, no big deal. He benches David Pastrnak in the third period. To hear the Bruins talk about it, they're all like, no big deal, this happens. The man's coaching for his job. You know, in the litany of mistakes that Bruins management has made, one of them is undoubtedly making your head coach a lame duck in a season in which you really need things to go well with your team. And Jim Montgomery is not the reason why the goaltending tandem of all goaltending tandems no longer exists, and the fact that Jeremy Swayman is playing like a goalie that did not have a training camp with a sub-900 save percentage, and Jonas Korpisalo is not a good replacement for Linus Ullmark. He's not at fault for them signing Elias Lindholm, who's a perfectly good complementary center, but by no means, in my book, a number one guy. And so on and so forth. I don't feel like this is all Jim Montgomery's fault, but undoubtedly he'll pay the price for it, and that's why he's being aggressive. He's trying to get their attention. The man is trying to save his job.
Now, is he the coach that is on the hottest seat in the NHL right now? I would say so, right?
I think so, only because
there's a lot of first-year coaches in the NHL.
There are, but also like some of the other places where you're looking at. I mean, I think everybody you've talked to in Pittsburgh says Mike Sullivan is safe despite what's happening with the Penguins. You know, Derek Lalonde with the Detroit Red Wings is one you look at and say there could be a change there if things don't turn around there. But in Montgomery's case, that's the market where we know the media can really turn up the heat on somebody if it's time. And also the fact of the matter is that management did not reward him with the extension. They're like, we're talking to him about it. Well, that's different than putting pen to paper. And he's a lame duck coach at this point, and you can feel the heat getting turned up if the Bruins remain middling.
Stay with it. Give us a winner.
Cale Makar. Mm-hmm. Cale Makar.
Not Kale the food.
No.
Never a winner in my book.
Well, that's not true. Have you ever had a good kale Caesar?
No.
Delicious.
Okay.
Well, it's a Caesar salad, but with kale.
Oh.
And the crunch of it
Why not just have romaine?
The point being is that Cale Makar was one of three. because Romain is inferior to Kale, and Kale feels
What?
healthier. It feels healthier.
Get out of here!
It has a palpable crunch. As a guy who is a carnivore, I need to feel like I'm eating something substantial. So if I can eat a mushroom burger because the mushroom mimics the meat. If I'm eating a salad, I like to feel like I'm getting good roughage in my tummy, and I get more of that with kale than I do with romaine.
Kale literally tastes like something you eat right out of the forest.
I know, isn't that beautiful?
No!
Don't you feel connected with nature when you eat kale?
Please.
Cale Makar was one of the 3 players to lead the NHL in points after October. Now, why is this significant? Well, because he's a defenseman.
Yeah.
And in the history of the National Hockey League, it's only been 3 instances where a defenseman has led or had a share of the points lead after the first month of the season. The other 2 times was a guy named Bobby Orr.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah. And coincidentally, those were also the 2 times that Bobby Orr led the NHL in points, despite being a defenseman. We're talking 69-70 and 74-75. A lot of us thought Cale Makar, based on last season, could score 100 points, Arda. Mm-hmm. What if he goes beyond that and becomes only the 2nd player in NHL history to lead the NHL in points as a defenseman?
I would love it. We're already making comparisons to Bobby Orr. Like, Cale Makar is so good that he is being put in the same category as Bobby Orr, who many people thought was untouchable up until Cale Makar.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And he's actually doing it at a time when hockey is good and competitive, and goaltending is great, and defense is great.
Oh, you don't say.
And there's like a lot more teams. So one might say Cale Makar is doing things that Bobby Orr never did.
Even if I made $88 million, I would never buy Cale. I just want to be clear. Which brings me to a winner, Igor's wallet. He said no to $88 million, and it's looking mighty good right now because he is absolutely stellar. He's had a terrific stretch, a terrific start to the season. The Rangers are rolling. They're one of 4 teams in the Metro with 8 wins to start the season.
Not bad.
Very, very good. And Shesterkin, arguably, maybe not so arguably, is the biggest reason for that. So, of course, he's going to command a higher salary.
They look very good. He bet on himself, and he may have won, especially if he wins another Vezina or maybe even the first Stanley Cup for the New York Hockey Rangers since 1994. What if that were to happen, Arda? Imagine the bonanza that will befall that man. Loser, Central Division Powers, talking about good starts with the Rangers, talking about bad starts for the Nashville Predators and the Colorado Avalanche. A combined record of 9-14-1 through their first few games of the season. The Predators, as we mentioned, bottom 4 in goals per game. They can't get on track offensively. Colorado, the worst goaltending in the NHL right now at a .834 team save percentage through their first few games. The difference between the 2 teams is that Colorado's getting reinforcements. You know, Lekkonen's back, Nikushin coming back. They're going to get an influx of that. They're going to feel a little bit better about themselves. Nashville, as you said, needs to figure themselves out pretty quickly.
I think attendance needs to figure itself out pretty quickly in the city of Winnipeg. That's one of my losers is Winnipeg support. Now, I want to be careful here. I'm not saying the team should move. I'm not saying that this is a crisis. Optically, as a fan of hockey, when you see a team that it has the best record in the NHL and they're struggling to fill 13,000 people in the arena, that's a concern. Now, I drilled into this. I dug into this.
He's done the research, folks.
And I spoke with a good friend of mine, covers the Jets for The Athletic, Murat Atesh.
Oh, we know him.
So he explained that a lot of this certainly has to do with corporate support. The fact that essentially the buck is being passed on to fans. Ticket prices might be a little prohibitive for many people in the city of Winnipeg to get into the arenas. Also, the season ticket holder retention has been a concern over the years. It was very strong in the beginning, 2011, 2012, etc., and now it hasn't been so. They've instilled new programs to try and rejuvenate that. For example, jersey off the backs, skating with the players, photo day, all the fun stuff that fans would those invaluable you can't buy for experiences, which you can buy for if you're a season ticket holder.
Right.
You get those invaluable experiences. So these kinds of things are being thought of. Optically still, when you have 12,000 and change for a game where the Winnipeg Jets are going, what are they now, 11-1 or
they're insane, yeah,
ridiculous record,
start, yeah.
That is a concern certainly from the outside looking in.
My next winner, the people in Phoenix, Arizona, who are going to get a terrific hockey team when Winnipeg relocates their next Oh, is that what you're trying to say?
Oh, right. Can't wait.
Winner for me, Alex Ovechkin. Alex Ovechkin's pace early in the season, 82 games, 52 goals, 104 points, and a plus 60 rating, Arda. He's 34 goals as we do this podcast away from catching Wayne Gretzky. More importantly, he's on pace to break 900 career goals by the end of the season. What do you think of Ovi's start?
I love it. I think he's super motivated. The team looks good. He's doing. I loved it. Someone posted. It makes so much sense when you look at it. Someone posted the picture of just Ovi standing like this on the power play.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just waiting for the puck. And he just does this.
Ovi spot.
Everyone knows.
Yeah.
Everyone understands. We're all in on it. It still happens, and it still works.
And you can't stop it.
It's great.
One more loser for me. People who won't listen to Connor Hellebuck. We found out this week that Connor Hellebuck, 2 years ago, made a 45-minute presentation to the NHL's competition committee in an effort to clarify what should or should not constitute goaltender interference. This is a guy who knows a thing or two about goaltending. He's considered to be one of the best in the world. Hellebuck said the committee listened attentively to his presentation, but wasn't willing to move forward with his approach. Now, don't we need the collective intellect of guys like Connor Hellebuck to help better define the most controversial aspect of NHL officiating in this league right now? I think so.
Yeah.
Listen to the man. He's going to be the starting goaltender for Team USA.
We'll get to that in a second. Shout out to Eric Comrie, his backup goaltender, for answering all the questions that hockey fans needed answers to. That was great content from Winnipeg Jets Social.